You were told to wait, told to cross your arms and stand still like a statue in a church where the gods have long fled. Let her come to you, they said, as if desire ever obeyed commandments carved by cowards. But the truth? She doesn't come. She never comes. And there you remain, ossified in expectation, a monument to romantic impotence. Meanwhile, those who dared to move, to hunt, found not only her footsteps, but her heartbeat. We live in an age where motion is mistaken for desperation, and stillness for strength. Yet strength is not stillness. It is the howl of the wolf that dares the forest, not the sheep that waits for the shepherdess to take pity. You believed pursuit was weakness, that by showing desire, you surrendered your worth. But this is the first lie that must be burned at the altar. Pursuit is not desperation. It is dominance wrapped in intention. There is a difference between chasing and hunting, between begging and selecting. The man who begs offers his soul for a smile. The hunter, he offers a challenge. One draws pity, the other provokes obsession. And obsession, my friend, is the root of emotional addiction. Tell me, when was the last time she dreamed of the man who did nothing? When did stillness ever set a heart ablaze? You must become the flame, not the candle waiting to be lit. There are two hunts in this life, one of the mind, one of the soul. The logical pursuit is a transaction. It weighs, it measures, it calculates. He has money. He has status. He can elevate my life. And so she draws near, not out of hunger, but out of arithmetic. This is the pursuit of bank accounts, not blood. The man who is chased logically is not a man. He is a resource, a convenience, a stepping stone with a pulse. But don't mistake attention for affection. Her body may arrive, but her spirit lingers elsewhere, with the man who made her feel. Roberto had restaurants, yes, but he lacked the storm. They came to him with open hands, never with open hearts. And every night he drank to forget that truth. Yet there exists another path, rough and hidden, a pursuit that begins not in reason but in chaos. Emotional pursuit, when she needs you like air, when your silence is louder than a crowd, when your absence echoes in her chest like a drum. Here logic fails. She doesn't ask herself, what does he give me? She only knows, I need to feel him. And here lies the secret most men will never learn. You can manufacture this hunger. Yes, desire is a flame and you can spark it, feed it, even starve it, until she begins to chase the ghost of your presence like a madwoman in the dark. Not because she chose to, but because her instincts demand it. Let me show you how addiction begins, not with intensity, but with dosage. A man offers a cigarette to his friend. Try it, he says. The taste is sharp, curious, novel. Days pass. Another appears. The ritual begins. Appearance, absence, return. Slowly it becomes a pattern etched in the nerves. One day the friend asks for it. Another day he pays for it. What began as a gift transforms into a craving. So it is with emotions. So it is with women. At first, you offer something intangible, a glance that lingers, a question that stirs, a moment that breaks the rhythm of her day. Then you vanish. And when you return, it is not you she desires. It is the feeling you leave behind. The master of seduction is never constant. He is rhythm, not repetition. He knows that what is always available is never sacred. That presence becomes a prison when unearned. So he withholds, not out of cruelty, but out of calculation. He disappears not to punish, but to create space for yearning. You must become like rare perfume. Too much suffocates, too little fades, but just enough leaves the room haunted by your essence. Understand this, she doesn't crave your messages. She craves the silence between them, not your touch, but the memory of its absence. Emotional scarcity is the new gold, and the man who masters it becomes irresistible. There is a sickness in modern man's, a desire to be liked more than to be desired. He floods her with validation, not to awaken her heart, but to silence his own insecurity. He confuses quantity with quality, believing that more messages, more emojis, more calls will somehow penetrate the fortress of her soul. But what he builds is not connection. It is noise, and noise numbs. The man who never withholds becomes background static. She doesn't hear him anymore. His compliments turn to dust. His eagerness, once charming, curdles into neediness. He becomes like water poured into a broken vessel, always giving, never held. And then he wonders why she disappears, why she changed, why her replies come late, dry, cold. But the truth is simple and cruel. He made himself predictable, and in doing so, he made himself boring. To be a hunter, you must first be whole. Need nothing, expect nothing. Chase not because you lack, but because you choose. The man who chases from fullness walks with thunder in his step. He offers his presence like wine, potent, intoxicating, rare. She feels it. Women always feel it. Instinctively, biologically, they sense when a man moves from sovereignty rather than scarcity. She may test him, doubt him, resist him, but she will never forget him, because the hunter plays a different game. He plants seeds in her subconscious, moments that echo days later, words that haunt, silences that burn. And slowly, invisibly, he becomes not just a man, he becomes a force, a sensation, a myth, the kind that visits her in dreams and leaves her waking up breathless, confused, craving. That is the art of presence without permanence. That is the true beginning of emotional conquest. Some men try to argue their way into a woman's heart, as if logic ever seduced flesh. They speak in resumes, where they work, what they own, what they plan. But the heart, especially the feminine one, is no courtroom. It is a jungle, and jungles do not yield to spreadsheets. The woman you desire is not moved by your accomplishments, at least not deeply. She is moved by mystery, by danger, by tension, unresolved. And so, the hunter doesn't explain himself. He expresses himself. Through energy, not exposition. Through presence, not persuasion. He lets her feel the question before ever offering the answer. And most men? They ruin it. They kill the mystery by overexposing themselves. They hand over their soul. Like a receipt, neatly itemized, completely refundable. And she walks away, not because he wasn't good enough, but because he was too transparent to be compelling. Now listen closely. The most powerful word a hunter knows is not yes. It is later. It is maybe. It is not tonight. Not out of cruelty, but out of rhythm. The rhythm of scarcity. The sacred beat of seduction. To always be available is to be invisible. But to withdraw at the peak of the moment, that is art. That is theater. That is tragedy and temptation entwined. She must feel the absence like a pulse under her skin. You must become a beautiful interruption in her life, a song that ends just before the chorus, a kiss that almost happened. Do not fear leaving her wanting. That hunger is your ally, that ache your soldier. When she misses you, you win. When she wonders what you're doing, you win. When she has to imagine, not remember, you have entered her soul. And from there, the game is yours. In every man lives a shadow, the part of him that knows how to vanish, how to strike, how to remain untouchable. But modern comfort has buried that shadow under routines, schedules, and moral platitudes. Men are told to be nice, to be safe, to be emotionally available. But no one craves safety. They respect it, yes, but they do not desire it. What ignites fire is not safety. It is risk. It is the unknown. A man fully understood is a man easily discarded. The moment she can predict your every move, she stops dreaming of you. The fantasy dies, and in its place comes comparison. She begins to weigh you against others, not because you lack something, but because you've become too legible. You've become a map with no uncharted lands, and no woman falls in love with a manual. She falls in love with a myth. But how does one become a myth? By mastering the sacred art of incompletion. Leave things unsaid. Depart before the climax. Smile without explanation. Offer glimpses, not blueprints. Women, remember the man who left a question open, not the one who gave a full lecture. The hunter understands that tension is not a flaw. It is the essence. So he cultivates silence as much as speech, withdrawal as much as presence. He doesn't chase, he pulls. Not with force, but with gravity. He becomes the kind of man who does not need to say, "I want you," because she already feels it in the space between his words. That space becomes sacred, and in time, she begins to fill it with her own. Longing, her own fantasies, her own pursuit. Not because he demanded it, but because he earned it by remaining just out of reach. You must understand, seduction is not a sprint. It is a war of attrition, and the battlefield is not her mind. It is her rhythm, her daily pulse, her unspoken expectations. You break them, you interrupt them. You become the anomaly. Every man she has known before you followed the same script: immediate attention, fast replies, desperate invitations. Their presence was abundant, and thus their presence became worthless. But you are different. You appear like an eclipse, rare and magnificent. You send one message and then vanish like a rumor. You speak with certainty, not suggestion. Friday, 8 p.m. Wear something elegant. You don't ask, you announce. And if she declines, you smile and withdraw, without resistance, without drama. Because a true hunter never bleeds for one target. He bleeds for the hunt itself. And this is where most men fall. The moment she resists, they panic, they double down. What about Saturday? Are you free Sunday? Tell me when you can. But each of these questions is a dagger to their dignity. Each is a signal. You lead, I follow. And nothing is more repelling than a man who abandons his throne for her favor. The hunter does not negotiate desire. He offers the moment. If she declines, he disappears. Not out of spite, but out of principle. He has no time to convince. His energy is his currency, and he spends it like gold. And here's the paradox. The more effortlessly he walks away, the more violently she returns, because he has become the one variable she cannot control. And control is the illusion she has with all the others, but not with him, not with you. Scarcity is not manipulation, it is revelation. It reveals who truly desires you, who reaches out when silence falls, who steps forward when your steps retreat. Most men confuse attention with affection. They see her messages, her smiles, her words, and believe they are winning. But victory in seduction is not measured by what she says when you're present. It's measured by what she feels when you're absent. A woman may compliment you in person, but if your silence doesn't echo in her bones when you vanish, then you never truly entered her. You were decoration, not addiction. And addiction, the emotional kind, requires a precise balance of closeness and distance, like fire and air. Too much contact? The flame dies. Too little? It never ignites. But if you feed her just enough attention, just enough presence, the hunger grows. Not for you, but for what she feels with you. And once she associates you with that feeling, you no longer need to chase. She becomes the seeker. But beware, the moment she starts to chase, the test begins. Most men fail here. They get excited. They feel validated. She's into me. And so they begin to surrender. Every text answered in seconds. Every call returned. Every invitation accepted. They turn their castle into an open house and wonder why she stops knocking. Because the hunger is gone. The chase is over. And the emotional drug you once were has now become aspirin, predictable, dull, taken for granted. Andrea was like that. She began texting, calling, sending photos. At first it was magic. I thought I had won, but I forgot the most ancient law of power. Never become common, never become routine. I responded too quickly. I gave too much. And soon her messages were short, her voice colder. I had quenched the fire I worked so hard to build, not with cruelty, but with kindness. And that, my brother, is the most dangerous form of self-sabotage. The great seducers of history, those shadowed men whispered about in bedrooms and remembered in regret, all understood one brutal truth. Distance intensifies desire. And not just physical distance, but emotional sovereignty, the ability to not need. When you respond late, not out of game, but because your life is full, she feels it. When you decline her offer because you have plans, she notices, not with resentment, but fascination. Who is this man who doesn't bend for her? Why doesn't he crave her attention like all the others? In that space of uncertainty, the mind wanders and desire grows. She imagines, she fantasizes, she hopes. And this hope, this unfulfilled anticipation, becomes the soil in which obsession blooms. The man who is always present robs her of that garden. But the man who controls his availability, he becomes the sun around which her thoughts orbit. But there's a warning etched into this power. Timing is everything. Pull back too early, and she assumes you're indifferent. Withdraw too soon, and the flower wilts before it ever opens. The art lies in knowing when she is emotionally invested. How do you know? She texts first. She asks when you're free. She offers pieces of her story without you even asking. Her tone softens. Her responses grow longer. She notices your silences. This is the signal. This is when you must resist the urge to celebrate. Instead, you shift. You give less. You pause longer, not to punish, but to provoke. She must begin to chase, not just out of interest, but out of emotional necessity. You are no longer just a man. You are now the source of her inner narrative. And once you become that, she will fight to keep your presence near, because losing you would mean losing herself. Selective availability. This is the edge of the blade. Too much, and you bleed into her routine. Too little, and you vanish from her mind. But just enough, and you become irreplaceable. Imagine this. Of every 3 invitations she sends, you accept 2 and politely decline the 3rd. Of every 5 messages, you reply promptly to 4. The 5th waits. Not hours, but meaning. Your delay is not laziness. It is the whisper that reminds her, he is not always mine. And this whisper grows louder in the chambers of her mind. She starts to craft longer messages. She adds detail, she probes, she tries harder. Not because you asked her to, but because you've become the one man whose approval she doesn't already own. And that is rare. That is gold. Yet she will test you. They all do. She will mirror your tactics. She will withdraw, respond colder, cancel plans, not to hurt you, but to see if you crumble, if you chase, if you beg. And here, most men reveal their facade. They panic. They flood her inbox. They ask if she's upset. They try to fix what was never broken. But you will do nothing. You will remain the mountain. She may storm, she may recede, but you remain. No calls, no pleading. You live your life untouched. Because your power is not in reaction, it is in restraint. If she returns, you welcome her without question. If she doesn't, you remain unmoved. Why? Because you are the prize, not the petitioner. And until you believe that in your bones, you will always play the game on your knees. True, power in seduction is not loud. It whispers. It does not scream, "Look at me." It simply walks into the room and rearranges the atmosphere. And that power begins with detachment. Not coldness, not indifference, but spiritual independence. You want her, yes, but you do not need her. That's the difference between the animal and the god. The animal begs, the god chooses. And when you walk with that internal fire, that unspoken sense that you are already whole, she senses it. She can't name it, but she feels the shift. Other men orbit her. You make her orbit you. Other men adjust to her mood. You let her adjust to your silence. And slowly, her resistance becomes curiosity. Her curiosity becomes effort. Her effort becomes addiction. And that addiction, if fed with care and precision, becomes loyalty. Not out of obligation, but out of desire. But beware, even the loyal test their gods. She may try to see if your calm is real. She may ignore a message, delay a reply, flirt with the edge of disrespect. Not to destroy you, but to measure you. And this is your crucible. The insecure man erupts, demands, explains, justifies. But you smile, you remain, you offer no defense, because truth needs none. She will feel your absence like gravity, and if she returns, it will be with reverence, not resistance. If she doesn't, it was never yours to begin with. Let her go. Let her walk. The man who cannot walk away has already lost. The true hunter never mourns one lost deer in a forest of thousands. And in this forest, brother, you are not the one being hunted unless you choose to be. Most men are addicted to reassurance. They crave constant confirmation that she likes them, that she's still interested, that they're doing it right. But reassurance is a drug, and like all drugs, it weakens the spirit. You begin to perform instead of lead. You begin to adjust instead of attract. And worse, you begin to fear. Fear her silence, her delay, her ambiguity. But ambiguity is where seduction lives. That space between certainty and mystery is where the feminine psyche blooms. A woman doesn't want to know everything about you. She wants to wonder. She doesn't want you always available. She wants to feel the thrill of earning your attention, so stop chasing clarity. Let her wonder, let her guess, let her feel the anxiety of your unpredictability, because anxiety, in the right dose, is indistinguishable from excitement. And yet, let us not become cold statues. Let us not confuse power with cruelty. The goal is not to harm, but to haunt, not to manipulate, but to magnify. Magnify what is already true, that you are a man of depth, of direction, of standards. The scarcity you offer is not a tactic. It is a reflection of a life full of purpose. You don't delay your message because you're playing games. You delay because you were living, reading, training, building, breathing deeply in a world most men drown in. And that, above all, is what seduces her. Not your charm, not your lines, but the quiet, unshakable presence of a man whose life is already full, who invites her into his world not because he needs company, but because his fire is too wild to keep alone. When you finally meet her, in person, eye to eye, remember this: she will not remember the facts of your conversation. She will remember the feeling you left in her chest, not the topics you discussed, but the emotions you stirred. Did she feel seen? Did she feel alive? Did she feel mystery dancing behind your gaze? Most men conduct interviews. What do you do? Where are you from? They follow the same script she's heard 100 times from 100 mouths. But you are different. You ask questions that pierce the surface. When was the last time you felt unstoppable? What's something you did that no one knows about but still makes you smile at night? These are not questions. They are doors. And when she walks through them, you do not lecture. You listen. You lean in. You let her feel. Because it is not the logic of connection that seduces. It is the poetry of emotion. And when that emotion begins to rise, when her pupils dilate, when her posture melts, when her voice softens, that is the signal. That is when the air thickens and you must do less, not more. The average man tries to escalate. More talk, more compliments, more gestures, but the hunter knows tension is more powerful than action. So he slows down. He looks at her lips, then back to her eyes. He lets silence stretch. He lets her feel the possibility before he ever acts on it. And if she leans in, if she returns the gaze, then and only then does he move, slowly, deliberately, letting her close half the distance. Because the best seduction is co-created, not forced. And the kiss, when it happens, is not an achievement. It is an initiation, a ritual, a wordless pact between predator and prey, between storm and ocean. And it only happens because he dared to wait. But here lies the paradox. Just when the night reaches its most intoxicating point, you must end it. Not because you are cruel, not because you are disinterested, but because ending at the peak is what makes the memory eternal. Do not stretch the evening until it dulls. Do not wait for the silence to arrive and steal the magic. Leave while her eyes still glow, while her breath is still catching, while her heart still wonders, what just happened to me? That is the moment. You stand, smile, and say only this: I had an incredible time. No promises, no talk of tomorrow, a kiss on the cheek, and you vanish into the night like a secret too powerful to stay. And in that absence, you become larger than presence. You become myth. That night, she won't sleep. She will replay the conversation, the moments, the glances, the stillness. She will search for meaning in your silences. And when the sun rises, she will check her phone not for messages, but for yours. She has become the hunter. And here, most men would leap at the chance to reclaim her attention. They would respond instantly. They would fill the silence with noise. But not you. No. You will wait. You will let her want. Because true seduction is not a sprint. It is architecture. And what you are building is not a flirtation, but a fortress. A world where your presence is sacred and your absence is unbearable. A world in which she learns that desire is not about possession, but about pursuit. And you now are the prize that runs. Now she begins to message more. Longer texts, softer words, more exclamation marks, pictures of her meals, her pets, her smile. This is the point of no return for her. But for you, this is the most dangerous terrain, because now the temptation is strongest, to reciprocate everything, to give back all at once, to match her pace. But if you do, you kill the very flame you ignited, Because once she has you, truly has you, the mystery dies. And so, you must resist. You must become what most men cannot. A man who still withholds, not out of cruelty, but out of reverence. You don't give her less because she deserves less. You give her less because you are more. Because your energy, your presence, your words, they are art. And no artist gives away his masterpiece in bulk. But she will notice the difference. She will begin to test, cancel a plan, delay a reply, send a colder message. And here, brother, is the final trial. Will you panic? Will you try to fix the distance? Will you explain, chase, beg for normalcy? Or will you do what a hunter does, observe in silence? You see, her pullback is not rejection. It is a mirror. She wants to see if you are who you claim to be, or just another illusion with strong words and weak heart. So you say nothing. You change nothing. You continue living. And in that quiet steadiness, she feels something terrifying and beautiful. Respect. Because now she knows, even if she walks away, you remain whole. Even if she vanishes, you do. Not collapse. You are not hers. You are your own. This is the moment she returns, not just with interest, but with intent. She writes, "Are you still up for that place you mentioned?" She calls, casually, but her voice trembles. She smiles wider, laughs more easily, touches your arm just a little longer. Why? Because you've become the first man who passed her tests without even trying. The first man who didn't chase when she retreated. The first man who didn't treat her attention like oxygen. And now she fights for yours, not because you manipulated her, but because you disciplined yourself. You became the rarest kind of man, the one who doesn't bend to beauty, who doesn't beg for validation, who doesn't trade his spine for affection. And when she returns, you receive her not as a man desperate for love, but as a king who chooses who may sit at his table. And this is the true victory, not just her presence, but her pursuit. You taught her without words that your time is a treasure, that your love is not free, it is earned. You taught her how to value you by how you value yourself. And this, my brother, is the final alchemy. She is now addicted not to a mask, not to a performance, but to the essence of who you are. She wants to be near the man who made her feel alive, and not with tricks, but with presence. And once you've built that presence, that myth around your name, she will guard it. She will protect it. Because deep down, every woman dreams of a man who cannot be owned, only invited. And you now are that man. But never forget, this isn't about one woman. It never was. The moment you shape your entire being around the attention of one, you begin to rot from within. Because the true hunter hunts for the thrill, for the art, for the dance, not for a single prize. She may stay, she may go. That is irrelevant. What matters is you, your growth, your poise, your fire. You do not abandon your purpose for affection. You do not collapse your life into the shadow of her interest. You remain a man moving forward, always with or without her. And that movement, that motion toward greatness, is what keeps her. It is not your charm, not your wealth, not your words. It is your refusal to kneel. And she, if she is worthy, will rise to walk beside you, not ahead, not behind, but beside. If not, let her fade. You are not here to convince. You are here to become. So here we are. The hunt is complete. The power reclaimed. The lesson carved. Into your bones like ancient scripture. You began as a seeker, tired, rejected, misunderstood. But now you are the fire. You are the frame. You are the man who no longer begs to be chosen, but who chooses. The man whose presence awakens, whose absence torments. The man who understands that love without respect is slavery, and desire without mystery is boredom. If these words ignited something in you, if they shattered the old skin you've been wearing, then I ask you this: do not go back. Do not forget. Share your thoughts below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a comment that another man might find when he needs it most. Because in this dark forest of doubt and mediocrity, a single flame can guide the way.